I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're going to start tonight's meeting off with a couple of presentations. Richard?
Want me to make an introduction?
That's exactly what you're
Okay.
reading my mind. I don't like that.
So, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jeff Lano. When, about a year ago, you assigned me with the task of finding out what's going on with the streetlights, which I've pursued. And when I went to the Association of Towns, I went to a NIPA seminar. Kevin, I guess he's your associate, Kevin Lutheran. And so as we've discussed, all around us in the city of Kingston, there's 2,200 lights being replaced. In the town of Newcastle, there's 2,600. In the village of Nyack, there's 495. In Clarkstown, they did 4,000 of them in 4 months. And in Rhinebeck, they're doing several thousand. So it's happening all around us, and people are recognizing as much as 70% savings. So I thought it'd be nice if we heard what Jeff has to say, and we're not committing to anything yet. But we all need to get an education on this, and Jeff will give it to us.
Thank you, Richie. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm just passing out a little agenda, some talking points that I'm just going to kind of run through. Again, my name is Jeff Lano.
Jeff, the microphone there transmits to the people at home.
Okay.
It doesn't do anything in here, but
Okay. So my name is Jeff Lano. I'm with the New York Power Authority. I do business development and energy advisory services for NIPA, for the public sector. So I prepared for Mr. Sullivan when we met at the Association of Towns, and we had a couple of conversations after that. I prepared basically a rough estimate of converting the town's existing streetlights to LED lighting. So NIPA, our core business is supplying electricity to the public sector, state agencies, and some of the larger municipalities throughout the state, including New York City and Westchester County. We also sell electricity to other state agencies throughout the state. But part of what NIPA also does is offer energy efficiency services to the public sector. So we work with a lot of municipalities, several that Richard rattled off that we're working on street lighting, for instance, like the City of Kingston and Rhinebeck Town and Village, as well as Clarkston and Orangetown on this side of the river. And what we do through our Customer Energy Solutions department is implement energy efficiency programs. And renewable energy projects. We're allowed to do this for the public sector as kind of a handoff from one of our customers through statutory authority, which means NIPA is legally allowed to do this, and you're legally allowed to assign a project to us through Public Authority Law 1005, Section 17. So what NIPA's done, knowing that LED street lighting has become a hot item and a great way for towns to save money on energy and maintenance, is developed a program with the governor's office called Smart Street Lighting New York. And we have in our pipeline over 300,000 lights. We've installed over 50,000 lights. And it's really kind of become something that's really, catching on. And many municipalities are doing it to realize the tremendous savings in both electricity and maintenance. So we've developed a full turnkey solution, which means we do everything from the engineering design, working with your community, working with the police department to figure out the appropriate lighting levels for your lighting system and design accordingly. The reason you can hand off projects to NIPA, we've done procurements already for these engineering services. We've also done a procurement for the materials, the Cobra head type fixtures. So we get tremendously discounted fixture pricing that, in essence, NIPA just passes those costs through the project, so you don't pay us any kind of a markup or what have you. So Phillips won the bid and gave us great pricing because we anticipate doing, the goal is really 500,000 by 2025. So we're basically partnered with them on that, and they're our major supply vendor for the lighting. So NIPA, in addition to doing the engineering design, which would drive the selection of the appropriate wattages and kelvins, and I'm certain a small town would probably want something that's not too bright, but getting away from more of that yellowy look that you probably have now, but something that's moderate and will kind of mimic moonlight, 3,000 Kelvin. So it's not a glaring, super bright, intense light, but it's something that I'm sure you've all experienced if you've traveled around in some of the nearby towns. So it's not overwhelmingly bright or glary, the light at 3,000 Kelvin. It's appropriate for residential and sort of country towns like what you have here. So NIPA's done the procurement for the engineering services. We've done the procurement for the materials. So that's ready to go. So it's an expedited program. And then what we will do is go out to bid for the installation labor contractors. What we'll also do, assuming we go into construction, bless you, is monitor, construction manage the project to ensure everything's being done according to the design specs. And that the workers are working safely, there's traffic safety, pedestrian safety, things of that nature. So we would monitor that on the ground when the job hits the ground level. This is a small project. Installation would probably be 2 to 3 weeks. It's 167 lights or non-LED in your town. So as I sort of do an initial estimate, a very conservative cost estimate, which is this one-pager document here, it's like a spreadsheet. There are a variety of costs in delivering the project. Materials and labor for what gets installed, plus a range of allowances we build into the project in the event we find things that we would recommend getting taken care of while we have men up in the air doing with the bucket truck. Things like any wiring deficiencies, or if an arm appears to be failing or on the verge of failing. So we've set up allowances that would be in the initial budget per se, and then only used as we all mutually agreed that, yeah, that's an arm that should be replaced while we're here. And then we would tap into those allowances. Additionally, we build in a 10% contingency into the project just to present, in cases and instances like this, a very conservative initial cost estimate. So as we drill down on the proposal, I've also included in the project cost $58,000 for the purchase of your existing street lighting fixtures. So that would be on the town to interact with Orange and Rockland to actually purchase the existing fixtures that you have, that you're paying O&R for the electric costs and what they refer to as facilities charges, which include mostly the maintenance that you're paying in case a light goes out and you need to call somebody to fix it. When you own your fixture, you would have to do the maintenance yourself, but NIPA is going to be rolling out an operations and maintenance program. So we're actually going out to bid in the next couple of weeks. And we anticipate, based on what the bids that were received for Clarkston and Orangetown, that was $10 per year per fixture. Now you're probably paying about $100 per year per fixture through your Orange and Rockland bill. So they're saving tremendous amounts of money there on operations and maintenance. For purposes of your proposal, I use $20, just to be conservative. Again, creating probably a 20 to 30% higher cost minus allowances than the project will actually most likely come to be. For instance, I used $150 for labor for each fixture to be installed. We just got pricing back at $135 for for Rhinebeck and Red Hook and Kingston. So again, that's a conservative number, and we put the project out to bid. We can use local guys, and we have a bunch of vendors as well that we would bring in for a bid. The more the merrier, so long as they're qualified. So part of this initial project summary also estimated energy savings, which is essentially, if you have a 150 watter, we'll replace it with a 54 watter. You save 96 watts, and you pay 11 cents a watt per hour. So do the math, you save some money. It's very accurate, predictable energy savings. And we also eliminated the maintenance savings, the maintenance costs that you're paying to the utility, but we factored in some other charges just to say you're going to spend some money on maintaining your system going forward. So we don't want to paint a picture that's too rosy. That won't come to be. So as we drill down and keep going through the numbers, based on including your purchase price of your fixtures, which NYPA can finance for you, you're looking at a payback of 7.21 years, and which is I would say on a 1 to 10, that's about a 7. We find basically paybacks with tremendous wattage deltas, 4 years. We find others up to 10 years, so you're a 7. So it's a good project to consider. So knowing that, using an interest rate of 2.5%, which is basically NYPA's cost of money these days, you guys have excellent credit rating. They lend money to the public sector based on credit score and risk, and you guys, I think, are low risk, so you'd be close to that 2.5% interest rate if you decided to finance the project with NYPA. We come up with, in order to have the savings from the project pay for the debt service, you would finance this out over 9 years. Well, knowing that the project cost is probably going to come in somewhere south of this initial number, you'd probably be, 8 or 7 years, depending on, again, those bid costs. That would get refined during that process. So it's like a turnkey project. The town spends no money along the way. NYPA makes all milestone payments to contractors, can purchase the fixtures from Orange and Rockland on your behalf, carry all those costs, which is shown on the spreadsheet called interest during construction, which is also very high. The main reason that that's such a high number is that this assumes the entire project cost, $169,000 or $164,000, is put out on the street day one and is carried out on the street for a year. We know that's never going to happen. Like I said, this project should take 3 weeks to install. But by the time we pay engineers and do the design, start to end, might be 4 to 5 months, but we'll make that last milestone payment, and then we'll say the project's done. So the interest during construction will be a third of that, if not less than that. So in essence, if the project by miracle came out to exactly what I'm proposing and you entered into a 9-year loan, you'd actually be cash flow positive each year as a result of the project. So not only would you have less headaches with your street lighting, you'd be reducing your carbon footprint, greenhouse gas reductions, and putting money in the town budget every year as a result of the project. So this is a small project. NYPA is implementing the city of Albany with close to 20,000 lights, the city of Syracuse with 41,000 lights, city of Buffalo. We're working with the city of Rochester as well. We did the city of White Plains, the others more in the Hudson Valley region, like I said earlier. So we have a pretty solid business plan in place, and NYPA is very transparent throughout the process. As the job, we would have kickoff meetings with the engineers, bring in everybody from the town whose supervisor wanted to have an input. We always end up bringing in the police department. They know certain areas, maybe you want an extra light for whatever reason, or you're going to be putting up a bus stop somewhere, so you want to add a light somewhere. So we would want to incorporate those issues into the design. So we would work with you from start to finish, have construction meetings, kickoff meetings, so you know who is working, and there'd be full transparency and information for you guys, and opportunities to ask questions, give input, etc. NYPA would have a full-time project manager who's also an engineer on the project, supervising all phases of the project, including the design engineer of record and the installation labor. So when the job's all done, we sit at a table, we review all the expenses for the project, we reconcile, come up with a bottom line number, and then you say, we've bonded for the project, here's a check, or let's start a loan repayment agreement. Either way. So it's a fairly tried and true and trusted way to get this project done. So that's essentially what we do at NYPA. We do all kinds of energy efficiency. We did $300 million worth of work last year, and have a goal of doing $400 million this year. So this is a small project that will be very seamlessly implemented. It's an easy go. So again, I'm happy to take questions.
I would just like to let people know, when you mention some of these numbers, I'm looking at our bill for this month. We pay close to $45,000 a year currently for our streetlights for the town outside the village. Just so people have an idea, it's costing almost $3,500 a month. And the way Syracuse and all these other places, they're all taking ownership of them. That's how they're doing it the same way.
Yeah.
That's a trend that's going on all around.
Right.
I know that makes some people nervous. It's not unique to us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what's happening. The utility companies have been making a lot of money maintaining streetlights that they necessarily don't always fix or fix in a timely fashion. And that's been, I guess you could say, a cash cow for them. 80% of your bill goes for your maintenance, 20% for your electric. So based on what Richie just said about a $45,000 a year street lighting, we're proposing that you're going to end up saving about $23,000 from this project, conservatively. So you'll be saving essentially half of your street lighting budget can be reallocated to other things.
And I speak on nobody's behalf, but I've been to Clarkstown at nighttime. I drove all around to see. And Clarkstown, I put in FOIL requests with them, but via email. Within 15 minutes, there was a gentleman named Robert Birdie that called me back and spoke at length. He would take questions from anybody. I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just saying that I thought it was nice looking down there. Now, here in Highland Falls, I know where there's one that's like ultra bright, and I've heard some people complaining about it. It's just the wrong light. It was installed by the utility company, nobody else.
Right.
So I know there's concerns about that, and we have an expert sitting right there, Mr. Lutz. I know he's got a few questions.
But you're right about the utilities. Somebody called, they got out there 3 weeks later, and they probably had a 5,000 Kelvin, 180 watter. So that's what went up at that fixture, where it probably needed a 54 watter, 3,000 Kelvin. But that's where they were that day, and they had one on the truck, and that's what they did. And there's a light there, so they can't be held to task. But those are the kinds of things that we would tweak, want to know about, and take corrective action on as part of the design. Yeah.
Thank you.
Before you take from the audience, let me make sure the board gets
Oh, I'm
any
sorry.
questions. I didn't have anything.
I do. You said that you're going out to bid to be able to do the maintenance on the
Yes.
lights?
Yes.
And what is that cost is not in here? That'll be an
That's
additional?
basically factored in at $20 a light per
Okay.
year. That is factored in here, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If it turns out to be 16, then it'll be 16. That's what you'd pay.
Your number of lights is based on the lights outside of the village.
It's
Yes.
based on the lights that you're paying for. It's
Okay.
directly from an Orange and Rockland utility bill. Yeah, that
And
you're
then
paying
one other
for.
thing, light levels, is that standard for all over? Or,
No. We can put in 2,800 Kelvin, which is a little on the yellowish side. 3,000 Kelvin, which is what I would recommend. I'm not an engineer, but I've done enough lighting projects in my life that 3,000 would make sense. Or you can go to 4,000. Often more urban-y, kind of bigger towns with a main street would do 4,000 because they want it really bright. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic and craziness. I wouldn't do that here.
Well, I think what I'm getting at is, does the whole town have to be under the same light limit?
No.
So this little, well, we have a road, Canterbury Road, that's very rural. And I would assume that they would not want the same lights as on 9W. So that can be sectioned out.
Absolutely.
To different.
Yes. Our pricing with Philips, if it's a 35 watt light, it's $86. Doesn't matter what the kelvins are.
And if you have someone in a particular house that hasn't slept in 2 weeks since you put the lights in, we can change the light.
We could change the light, or what we would do is put a shield,
Okay.
a back shield. But what you'll see, what you'll learn with these lights is that they're so directional, the light, that night sky pollution will be mitigated, backlighting will be mitigated. If anything, the complaint's gonna be, oh, now I have to turn on my front porch light, because you're not paying for me to light my front yard anymore. So that's a more
Okay.
common complaint than the opposite. Yeah.
Richie, did you have anything? Okay, anyone in the audience like to ask questions? Bill?
Just more a point, just to support what you're saying, like 3,000 Kelvin is really a sweet spot there. And you can go a little bit warmer for people who are
Right.
sensitive. It's all about the blue light, the colder temperature that ruins people's sleep patterns and bird
Right.
migratory problems, and where you have
Yeah.
any kind of risk of any kind of feedback on a health issue or something.
Right. And some of those initial studies by the AMA 3-4 years ago that LED guys try to live down now, we're done on 5,000 Kelvin lights. So, now they're
That's
3,000,
what I
it's a
run
big
at
difference.
work, and that's what the police might be like to see, because
Right.
it gives you much better color rendition when you're trying to, but it comes at a cost.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, definitely.
And just my experience with the budget, I think Kelly can probably reinforce that, where you're trying to be at 2 or 3%, that bill always seems to go up double digits every year. It's just, so.
Right, this is a
Your
way to mitigate
return on
that.
investment right now, even though it's, 7 years, is
Right,
probably even better than that if the trend continues where it's going up.
yeah,
Double
yeah.
digits.
And right, everything, electric rates don't go down, they only go up. This is based on today's rates.
Right.
5 years from now, they could be 20% higher, God forbid. Two other points I want to make about the street lighting. We do offer a different photo cell, which is more of a control node. That would be $140 a fixture. What that allows you to do is to, and it's called a control, city touch control node. That would allow folks at the town to dim the lights as needed. So if you did, I did a project, I just finished a project in the town of Southampton. They did all of the nodes. It's a good thing they did them, because there's one person who, you can't make, it's unsatisfiable in essence, and there's less light than she had in front of her house, but she's bent on this is no good. They just turn her light down to like 20% output because they have these nodes. So you can do that also, you can get those. And it's sort of future-proofing your system, because in about 3 years, NYPA and others are putting pressure on the utilities to create a tariff that's based on a meter. So the node actually has a meter, and it's being tested now by the utility companies for its accuracy. They're not used to having somebody else's meter be a revenue-grade meter. And in this case, it would be like a Philips meter on this control node. So there's testing happening. So that means, just like if we were to dim these lights, you'd get charged less money. That's going to come in the street lighting as well, because now you're paying, all your lights they all could go out for the month, and you'd still get a bill. So this will make it more trued up and fair. So you're kind of positioning yourself for the future. You can also turn them down when you want to. July 4th, you have an event, you put in fireworks, whatever, you could lower the lights. We're also offering up to $20,000 grants if you implement the street lighting project for something called smart city technology, which is a range of cameras, sensors, environmental sensors, shot spotters, traffic controllers, different technologies, security cameras, as a grant for what they call smart cities. So really this light pole becomes, the buzzword is that it's more like a vertical asset, because you can now install other equipment that will sense if the road is icing up. And that's where the DPW guy goes and salts first, versus other roads that maybe get more sunshine and aren't iced. So there's all these Internet of Things, crazy things that NIPA is actually putting out based on the volume of your, the amount of your streetlights, grants to make this transformation. And it's sort of like a little carrot, obviously, to buy into NIPA's turnkey program, but it's fairly significant amount of money. And we would work with you on deploying smart street lighting technology. Again, work with the police. They might know where they want a camera or two, coming and going out of your town, different things. So you get $20,000 grant to do that work. Above $20,000, let's say the project cost $40,000, then we would go 50-50 match on anything above the first 20 grand, up to another $40,000 out of NIPA's pocket to match your $40,000. So you can basically get $100,000 worth of smart city stuff for $40,000 out of pocket, if you wanted to totally jazz up your town and have all sorts of bells and whistles on your street lighting poles. So just something to think about also. That's not in the proposal, but something that's fresh off the presses. And Richie, I'm going to send you a fact sheet on that. I just didn't want to email that to you over the bow kind of thing. I wanted to just let you know, and I'll send you a fact sheet on that. And you can, you guys can kick it around and think that that might be something you want to take advantage of too.
I just have two more questions on my mind. One, the life expectancy of a fixture of this type, 15 years, is that plausible?
They're supposed to last 25 years. I like to say 15. 25 is a long time.
Okay.
I'm fairly confident they'll last at least 15 years versus what you have now, 3 to 5 years they go out.
And my other question is, if I understand right, when the utility charges, they're not charging for lumens, they're charging you for the amount of watts that the fixture, so whatever the watts, so the light could be burned out, there's no amperage going to it, but you're being charged monthly for the wattage of that light.
They're deeming that your lights are running 4,380 hours a year, 12 hours a day, 365 days a year. Your bill gets adjusted each month based on trued up, but it comes out to be 4,380 a year, whether it's on or not.
One more question about money, and just the round numbers, because I like that, messing with round numbers. The project's going to take a $160,000 loan from either you or wherever. We're going to save $20,000 a year. So that $20,000 applied to the loan would say 8 or 9 years. We've got the loan paid off with our savings.
Right.
And from that point on, that savings is in the pocket.
Correct.
That's about what it is?
That's it.
Okay. Okay.
That's the theory of
Kelly, you hear that?
energy efficiency. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
Question behind you.
Yes, Olga?
Okay, I have 3 questions. One, how does this plug into the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities program, of which LED lighting is a part?
This is an action item. LED street
So
lighting is an action
facilitate
item.
all the paperwork that we need to supply to NYSERDA to get.
If you told them you were working with NIPA on a project, they would say,
And
fantastic.
what do we get out of that from NYSERDA, do you know?
You number one, you'd be recognized as a clean energy community, and you would receive a grant.
So there is a grant
And
attached.
depending on the size of the community, it ranges, I think the grants are 5,000 right now. There's been tremendous appetite from communities to get that grant money.
All right, so there's an incentive there
Yeah.
to plug into that.
And there's incentives from Orange and Rockland. I think it's 10 cents a kilowatt hour reduction. That's not in your proposal. So you're going to end up getting back when the project's done and it comes out, again, just to say, hey, it actually came out where we're saving 85,000 kilowatt hours you would receive a rebate back from Orange and Rockland of somewhere around $8,500. So that can be.
Two incentives.
So that can be, and you can tell the NYSERDA folks that when you get that grant, you're going to use it to buy down your street lighting project. Or you do
So-
something else with it.
The other question is, Supervisor mentioned that this is for the town, less the village. And is there a reason why it wouldn't incorporate the entire town?
Because I can't speak for the village. It'd be part of the program.
So is the village?
I have not been in touch with them, but I would be delighted to.
I mean, would there be some additional, economies of scale?
Absolutely. Sure.
All right, so we need to get that going.
And get my contact information and make the connection. I'm happy to meet with them and go through the exact same exercise with them that I did for you guys. Yeah.
And final question is it possible to do kind of a little pilot so that you put in a 3,000 Kelvin bulb, you put in a 2,000, you put in a whatever, so we can sort of experience that.
You know what? If you decide that NYPA is your trusted public sector energy partner, we will install samples for you to check out if you'd like to. Yeah. We're not just going to do it now before we have a deal going. Yeah, but as part of the project, we would do that, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
As a matter of fact, Kingston's doing that, and they're looking, and I don't know why they did it this way, but they installed 4 different light fixtures, 1, 2, 3, 4, with different wattages. So I don't know how they're possibly going to differentiate, the light's going to bleed into each other, kind of.
Yeah.
But that, they just asked for some fixtures because their own highway department guys did it that way. But we were supposed to go meet with them Thursday, but they had to push back the meeting. But anyhow.
Bill, did you have something?
How long was the term of the loan again?
For this project, it's estimated now, I think, at 9 years. It could come in less.
So you would have a little bit of a savings in your budget next year until you paid it off, and then you have a big.
Right. Uh-huh.
And just a point with the village, they were way ahead of the town when Bob Mellon worked this to death when he was on the village board and had all the fixtures picked out. Maybe worked with you, I don't remember. But,
I've been with NYPA 3 years, so I don't.
Yeah, they had to move separately because it's part of their budget.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's my recollection.
But I'm happy to talk to them, and maybe they know how we already did them or not. But if you go through their village, you can sort of tell the difference. The LEDs are very flat. The fixture's thinner and flatter, and the light goes down. Whereas the old type, like the metal halides, are a little more round, and actually the prism goes outside the top of the light, and that's why light goes up a little bit. The LEDs, it's all going to be going down. So. But I'm happy to reach out to them if you know who I should contact or have them contact me.
Well, I thank you very much, sir. It absolutely was very informative and you put things in a manner that we can understand it. I mean,
Right.
it's
No,
nice
it took
to
me a
read
while
it.
I'm an energy efficiency guy doing boilers and windows and stuff. So this was, this has been a really full steam ahead last year and a half for guys like me to really learn something new. So it's been fun, and I've seen some communities really be very pleased with the outcome.
Councilman Sullivan will be your contact person.
Sure.
Right, Rick?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I truly
Good night.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Now we have one more topic, which John Blanc, you can step up.
Yes.
He's a local resident, been very active in the town, in particular the ambulance corps that I know about. And like everybody else in town, he said he stands out in front of his house and he's got no bars or no whatever. And so he's got no service on his cell phone to speak of. So John, would you introduce your guest, please?
Yes. And so I'm here as a member of the community. I have property on Mine Road, also in Wyant. And on Mine Road specifically, cellular coverage was terrible. Over on Wyant Road, it's limited. I get a little bit of cellular coverage, however, it's not strong enough and the signal's not strong enough to do other things. And so I have a background in some computer communication, but I have very limited cellular. I do know that the topic of cellular communication is complex, it's complicated. And in order to install and have all of this working, there's no such thing as a rubber stamp. There's no such thing as a simple solution. It requires a little bit of research and a little bit of energy. So I invited somebody that I know, a personal friend of mine, a consultant, okay, who has a background in cellular communications and does extensive work. He's here to provide some information. He's not here as a commercial entity per se, okay? I asked him to come. He said he would. So I'd like to present Mr. James O'Gorman of Communications Engineering.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Well, as John said, I'm not here to sell you anything. Okay, I'm a consultant. I've been an independent consultant since 1980, and been working in the cellular industry for about 12 years. My primary client is your neighbor, the United States Military Academy. I've also done work at the Naval Academy and several other institutions of higher learning, University of Delaware, and a couple of places out in Michigan, et cetera. So the purpose of my being here really is to help you, answer any questions you might have. I could tell you that I am engaged right now at West Point in trying to improve service along 293. The training camp areas, we're actually in the process of doing lease agreements with AT&T and with Verizon Wireless for two separate monopole towers, in the training areas again. Mostly for the cadets and cadre and staff of the academy, but there's certainly going to be enough bleed over to help the residents and people either driving through in 293 and dropping their calls, which I'm sure everyone's experienced here, or even, some of the recreational stuff that occurs down there too. One of my main projects there was to install what we call a distributed antenna system. Okay, so a distributed antenna system actually collects all the frequencies and spectrums and technologies from Sprint, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon, and actually puts it on fiber optic cable that goes out to the individual barracks and academic buildings, Thayer Hall, Mahan Hall, Ike, Washington, et cetera. And it all gets broadcast out of ceiling antennas. Okay, so the cadets and all the other people working at West Point can actually get 5 bars of service anywhere they are in their buildings. It doesn't always cover what's outside. Okay, so one of the things that we do, or what I do, I sit on the side of the enterprise. So it could be a university, or it could be a business. It could be a high-rise residential business. It could be an industrial business. It could be a town. Okay, and basically negotiate with the carriers to get service in the particular areas. So the way that actually occurs is everyone has these visions of getting a lot of money from the carriers, and by the way, that was true about 20 years ago. All right, 20 years ago, you could expect to get a real fat, juicy contract from the carriers that would have like a 5% per year escalation clause built into it. I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? Okay, it beats Wall Street. But that was then. Today, the carriers have gotten a lot more stingier in terms of what they do, but they still are interested in obviously providing service to their subscribers. All right, without providing service to their subscribers, they don't make any money. So the gentleman before me mentioned something that I don't know if you heard him or not, but he said you have vertical assets. He was talking about the street lamps, et cetera, and that's an important concept when you start talking about how do you solve a problem like the town of Highlands or the village of Highland Falls. Okay, I know in my conversations with the engineer for Verizon, they were planning on putting a tower in the village of, I'm from New Jersey, okay, so I don't understand your towns and your hamlets and your villages, but I'll do the best I can. They were going to put a tower someplace in the village, okay? And John said, that doesn't help us much, I said, all right, fine. You don't necessarily have to do a tower. Towers are really good for wide area coverage, They usually, their antennas could be anywhere from 4 feet to 8 feet high. All right, they're generally mounted on either a steel tripod or quad tower, or a monopole. A lot of times you'll see monopoles. In fact, what we're doing at West Point are going to be monopoles. All right. And the broadcast area, as I mentioned before, is wide. The radiation is high, but of course, the antennas are so high they really don't impact the people down below. The other approach, when you're not in an area where you really need to, provide a lot of coverage or wide area coverage, is what they call small cells. Anybody hear of small cells? Okay, you probably heard of those terms before. All right, a small cell is just what it is. Okay, it's it broadcasts at 20 watts, which is half the power of what a large antenna will broadcast at, and doesn't cover as much, but it's still powerful enough to go through buildings and, to get good service, all right? And the only downside to small cells is it's a one carrier solution, all right? So if I went to Verizon or AT&T and said, hey, I want to improve service downtown here, how do I do that? And well, they could say you want to do a tower, but I don't want to do a tower. They could say, well, let's do small cells, and we would actually have to put small cells around. And there's some arguments that say that you can actually do that and have multiple carriers, all right? Not on one antenna, but have multiple small cells from, 2, 3, 4 different carriers. So that's a solution you can get. The towns, I think, have some advantages in that, you kind of own the infrastructure here. So you would be able to negotiate with these carriers and say, all right, fine, I have this asset, you have this service, how do we get together and how does this get played out? The way you probably would want to do it is to approach the carriers and say, we know we have problems, and by the way, they know you have problems before you know they have problems, because it's their best interest to know how well their coverage is. One of the reasons we were a little late was I wanted to actually show you some of the coverage maps that we have, okay? I don't have the coverage maps of your town, but I have of West Point and the Hudson River, and you would be able to see how their coverage meets the surrounding area, all right? And then you'd also be able to see how it doesn't, all right? So if you look at where 293 is, that goes, if red is bad and green is blue, that whole area around 293 is red, okay? Also, along the Hudson River, where West Point is for sure, and probably, I would venture to say, probably down low a little bit, unless you're getting bleed from across the river, which you very well may be, that generally is poor coverage. Because the RF signals, radio frequency signals, really don't like obstructions in their way. All right, so that's why you get these dead spots. All right, but as I was saying, the RF engineers for all the carriers know what their trouble spots are. All right, so the question becomes, how do you go about improving service? As I mentioned before, the village, I think, is already in negotiations. I don't know where that stands. I'm not engaged with that. But for this town here, you would need to really, begin the discussion with the carriers and work with them to see, what solutions they could provide, and also how it's going to get paid for. I mean, as I said, your assets are your land, your infrastructure, okay, both horizontal and vertical, because horizontal, you need to provide a conduit or some kind of place to put fiber optic wires. You need to provide, or at least have some access to power. All right, those are the things you need. You control those keys. So the carrier needs to work with you to not only just help you, but also help them in serving their clients. I'm going to stop. I could talk forever on this, but you guys, if you have any questions on,
Is it possible that what you're proposing out on 293 might benefit some of the areas in the town?
the AT&T one might, because it's going to be pretty high. It's really going to benefit to the west of that, I think, as well as to the east of it. It's going to be a high tower. The Verizon one is going to be fairly low, and it's probably just going to stay, within the training camps and maybe extend to some of the ranges, okay, and the motor pool.
And is that going to be happening in the near future, or are we talking years down the road?
Well, if the Corps of Engineers would ever get their behinds in gear, No, the problem we're having right now is with the Corps of Engineers and signing the lease. But Richard?
Richard.
Yeah. To answer your question, we're trying to get Verizon started this calendar year, and AT&T started the end of this calendar year. All the environmentals, and you can imagine how many, in addition to the regular environmentals that you have to do for something like this, I've got the military requirements as well. So I had to go to the Joint Spectrum Center down in Annapolis, Maryland, to make sure that the frequencies weren't interfering with military frequencies. I see the Master Sergeant? Command Sergeant, Major.
There you go.
There you go.
We've dealt with West Point and their regulations for many years.
Yeah. Well, you actually have, I don't know if it's the town of Highlands, you have some kind of radio shack up on Bull Hill,
Yeah.
Yes.
which isn't working.
Isn't working?
Best of my knowledge, it's not working.
And what's the difference between small cells and micro cells?
Good question. Again, you're dropping down in power, all right? Your coverage area is going to be a lot smaller.
I'm giving the example, upstate, we have a small camp, and we're within the coverage zone of AT&T. And being that we were within the area, but we did not have a strong signal, we were able to have them provide us with a microcell.
Yeah, and
So,
what they'll do,
is
that'll
it-
come off an internet connection.
Yeah.
Right, and it plugs in and
And is that something that homeowners could do in this area if they are within the coverage zone, that they could apply for a microcell?
Might be a little expensive on those, so femtocells are the ones that you usually consider for home use.
Yeah.
But, they're really like boosters.
Boosters.
But in a town environment, you'd probably be better with like a small cell solution, because then you wouldn't be having antennas all over the place. And they're they're more powerful. But again, you still need fiber and you need electric to, and they'd be either roof mounted. And, the other thing too is these things are can be pretty well camouflaged. I know you like that term. But, they call it stealth, all right? So, again, that could be in some kind of a street lamp. It looks a little heavier. You've seen sometimes flagpoles. We actually had one at Mikey Stadium, probably back in 2010, before we actually put the macro antennas on the roof of Hoffman Press Box. But, the carriers are very good. If they want to do something, they'll do it. They have the money. They put it in their budget. That's part of the planning process. You have to start early. You can't wait. You can't start now and expect it to be done by the end of this year, okay? Yeah, these things usually, go through a evaluation process. First, it starts with the RF engineer, radio frequency RF engineer. And he says, yep, there's a problem here, and we're losing it. And this is the real problem for them. Not only are you not getting served, but their system's trying to solve that problem. So how do they solve that problem? Well, they go across the river. Well, what does that do to the people across the river? There's only so much power to go around, right? It's a matter of physics. There's only so much power. So once you start drawing power from across the river, well, you got a problem over there now. The football stadium has plenty of antennas and plenty of power. But half the time, people are stealing from it. You know? So that's why it's very important to them to kind of ensure that their network is at optimal performance. They have more measurements on these systems than you can imagine. And as I said in the beginning, they know before you know that there's a problem. In building, your microcell is always a good solution. It's very easy to implement. Okay, it's not expensive. Usually you pay, it looks like an expensive computer, but it's like $21,000 or something like that. You can get those. But it's usually for a big building, okay, not this small. a
I can
building.
tell you, we didn't pay $21,000.
No, I'm
for our
sure,
Microsoft
yeah,
antenna.
but, yeah.
I'm curious, why is the Verizon tower lower than the AT&T tower, or will be?
Oh, in camp? Two reasons. One is Verizon, at least they told me, they're getting away from what they call boomer antennas. Basically kind of standalone antennas that cover a very large area. Two, it addressed the needs of the academy pretty well, because it really just kind of overlaid Natural Bridge and Buckner, okay? That doesn't mean that, by the way, I think that they all plan, each site is going to be equipped to handle up to 4 carriers. And this is something for you guys, when you do a cell tower or any kind of quid pro quo with these carriers, you get something in return too, right? Not just good service or improved service, but you can also perhaps, if it was going to be a monopole, for example, let's say you put a flagpole someplace, you could actually get space on that pole for, the town of Highlands. All right, so a lot of municipal police departments, fire departments, et cetera, first response, they'll use that 10-foot piece of real estate on the monopole as, something for the town. But the other reason is AT&T, and more importantly, from their perspective, it fit in with their, what they call radio area network much better. If Verizon put their antennas where AT&T plans to put their antennas, it would interfere with, what's the name of that? It's not discount, it's on exit 16, what do they call that? Just outlet store area?
Oh,
Woodbury Commons, yes. I'm sorry, I'm from Jersey. I said I pleaded ignorance from the very beginning. So, but it would interfere with that, and they'd be fighting each other. Okay, stay there. So that's why they don't do it.
In order, I'm looking, the best thing for the town, I hate to say outside the village, because they've got their cell tower, they're working on their cell tower, put it that way. But if outside the village we wanted to do something smaller than a cell tower, which you called small cells, we would be better off dealing with AT&T, Verizon, what have you, rather than a tower builder.
I would think so, yeah. In fact, if I had my, projector, I would have been able to show you what it looks like and what the coverage area would look like. Unfortunately, you don't. But, yeah, I mean, it won't cover the same areas we talked about before, okay? But it does a good job. But the question becomes then you're spread out, right? So what makes sense? I mean, where would you put small cells? I mean, obviously, on Main Street makes a lot of sense. I would think the village could probably do away with a tower. I mean, that's what I would think, but they didn't
Those
have-
towers, is there a general radius that they cover, or is, I'm sure it's probably impacted by terrain, like mountains
Absolutely.
and valleys and so forth?
Yeah, you could get, Well, there's two things to consider. One is, you're right, the terrain. Usually, it's a couple miles, but terrain will impact that. The other problem is, when you when you go on your phone and you see 5 bars, but you still can't make a call. Why? You know why? Because 19,000 of your other friends are using the same 5 bars, okay? So that's the difference between coverage and capacity.
A lot of the town residents don't even know what 5 bars are.
I'll take a picture and we'll put it up on the website. That's, it is, and by the way, it's going to, I don't want to be a messenger of gloom and doom, but, we can't live without these today. You really need to, consider that in your planning. It's nice to hear about the LED lights, but, you also have to consider your communications and, how that's going to affect the town growth and attractiveness as well.
Am I correct in assuming that we shouldn't plan on being able to utilize satellites to provide coverage because of the volume of traffic? They've talked about maybe in the future, everything can bounce off of satellites to
Well-
eliminate the poles, but
How high are satellites above the surface of the Earth?
quite a bit, yeah.
22,300 miles, right? There's something they call a delay in that signal. It works okay on asynchronous communications, but it doesn't really work well with the kind of communications we do and talking.
Yeah.
So that's one downside. And it's not cheap, okay? I mean, we use a lot of satellites for oil exploration in areas where, military uses quite a bit. So, you always have that alternative. But, the future really is, from use the term 5G, because you probably also heard that term before as well. But the future really is that's where the industry is going. And what that really means, to you is you're not going to have fewer antennas, you're going to have more antennas. All right? You're going to have, instead when I go and I point to it, or you look at a cell tower, you look at a roof of, construction, you might see, 3 or 4 antennas on a skid on the rooftop, right? Well, on 5G, you're going to see something like very small antennas, and they're going to be placed on, remember the old mailboxes that used to be on the corners where you put your mails in? Well, that's what it'll look like. It's like street furniture. Okay, and inside that street furniture will be what they call edge computers, and it'll have power and fiber, and it might even have antennas. But those antennas are going to be multi-array. Multi-array means that they might be 64 by 64 antenna. So that means 64 antennas on one line and 64 antennas on the X coordinate. Is it the X or the Y? It's the Y, okay. And it's been a while since I was in engineering school. So the bottom line is you're going to have all these physically small antennas that have a lot of communications capability, right? However, the distance between the antenna and the user is going to be very short, all right? So you're going to need more antennas, you're going to need fiber optic cable, you're going to need power in the streets, and that's a lot where the future is going.
A question, Bill?
Well, to solve John's problem, and you can't put a tower at the post office, how can the town board pursue a no-cost solution to John's problem? What's the next way?
What do you mean you can't put a tower in the post office?
The town tried to do that and failed from public opposition, a very large tower. So if that's a non-viable option, what's the?
That's the only piece of public property you have that's kind of,
In my mind, I
yeah.
can't think of another.
There's been 2 town properties attempted, Mine Road and there, and the fire department tried about 5 years before that. That's the only public property I'm familiar with in Fort Montgomery.
Fire department, the one that sells the Christmas trees?
Yes. I think they were the first ones to try some years ago, and it was
But they have a
opposed.
pretty, doesn't it go up, the mountain kind of go up right behind it there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, so who owns the property up there, or should I ask that question?
He has a very large house. I'm not sure he'd be willing to put a tower there.
Raise the taxes and, don't record that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of property owners like towers because they're a nice source of revenue. Remember, you're not just getting it from one tenant, because these, as I mentioned before, locations are usually built to handle multiple carriers, right? Like a 75 by a 75 piece of, property on the edge of his property that he never gets to, might not be a bad place to put a tower, as long as, we can get power and fiber to it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I think this debate was happening when we got on the town board 4 years ago about the issue of the tower being, in some cases, big, emitting radiation and being a health hazard and so forth. What you just described in a lot of ways is different from that picture. That there's options, not to have this big thing, but there's other more suitable options.
Yeah. I mean, the small cell wouldn't help John, but if there was the fire department, I don't know how far you are from the fire department. How far are you from the fire?
About 3/4 of a mile. But as the bird flies, maybe only half a mile.
Do you have one?
And the issue with the post office, I believe, was that was going to be a pretty high tower, and I'm not 100% sure what the exact problems that tower was going to solve. That's another point, because as was Jim explained, because of our topography, the lay of the land, so to speak, you have a very high tower, it may go over a mountain, but it may not cover the people immediately underneath. And so it takes someone to survey what the area is and discover what the problems are that need to be solved.
We were given the impression, going by memory, that would solve that and a tower at the town garage would solve the community's problem. Now, whether the farthest reach, of Canterbury or not, I don't recall.
That's why I like the idea of the improvements you're proposing out on 293, which would be on government property, not really requiring us to make any.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware of where your property was. I know you actually have, Highlands has property right on 293, is that correct?
No.
No.
Oh, no?
No,
I thought
it's
you were
all
north
West
of
Point.
Route 6 a little bit.
The town boundary is there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
If you go back to 1938, it was our land, but not anymore.
not anymore.
John was telling me that
Are
there
there-
was some kind of an iron.
Are there any other questions, please?
Sir, could I?
Yeah. Chief?
How can you determine that the Bull Hill repeater is off? Because speaking to the gentleman who was involved with it, putting up there, it's supposed to be checked sporadic. Do you know how it's off?
Well, what did he tell you? Is it working?
He doesn't know because we have to go through West Point to get there. So I just want to make sure it's a service call. So before we make a service call.
Okay, you got two problems there. One is it was hit by lightning about, I think, between a year and 2 years ago. Did it ring a bell?
No.
Well, it fried some of the LMR radios for the network people. They had to replace it. The grounding up there is practically non-existent.
It's on a rocket background.
Yeah. And there's virtually no lightning protection on that tower. So the ironic part, you want to hear something that's ironic, right? So, not quite like Pirates of the Caribbean, but the, one of the alternate solutions, or at least temporary solutions, is to put what you call a COW, cellular on wheels, COW, on the antenna up there in Bull Hill. It's about a 135-foot antenna. Bull Hill's about 1,600 feet, I think. Okay, take my word for it. It's about 1,600 feet. I've climbed it. Okay, and So so at any rate, we want to put a cow on it. So AT&T says, all right, fine, we'll do that. Let's test the grounding. So we brought up a ground expert, we brought up a lightning expert, and I think the ground potential was 450 ohms, which is supposed to be 25. 450 doesn't really work very well, right? So at any rate, but the irony part is that here we are, we're trying to put in a system to protect life safety of the cadets and the cadre and everyone else, right? And we're using a facility that's not very safe at all. But leave it up to the
You gotta
government,
look
right?
into this. Okay.
Yeah,
When
so-
I went to the Association of Towns, I went to, I'm looking at my notes here, a rural wireless seminar, wireless. A guy from New Jersey who represents New York State Wireless Association, which is a not-for-profit. His name was Tom Marciano.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know him or not. He was actually helping out. There's people in the Adirondacks, municipalities that are actually spending money inviting carriers to come put cell towers because they're so desperate for it. But up there, I'm not sure what you call it, they need microwaves because it's too far to run wiring in along the bottom. So I can remember that subject came up there.
Yeah, and you're right. So when I say fiber, what I'm talking about there is, at least to the tower, would be what they call backhaul, all right? So backhaul connects the tower equipment to the cellular switching equipment. It's almost like a central office that had all the wires at one point. This is a central office that has all the radio frequency stuff in it, okay? Every carrier has a wireless central switching center, all right? But you have to get that signal to the tower. So you don't have very many choices. One is to use fiber, as I mentioned before. The other, well, you could actually use conventional copper telephone wire too, but you used to be able to get away with it. You can't get away with that anymore. Or the other way is with microwave. In fact, we're thinking of, AT&T's thinking that they may, at least initially, have to use microwave for the tower up on, at the camps that they're planning to put in, because that's a tough road, that's a fire break road up there, to get to. So,
All right, sir, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
John, thank you for bringing this wealth of information to us.
I know we're on TV. Chief, if you're having trouble getting up there, I know people that can get you up there. Come see the mountain man, okay?
I do too. I do be there first thing in the morning. Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Previous minutes need approval.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Communications. I have two letters that Al Fusco sent to the low bidders on the sewer plant project, asking them to extend their bid till August the 1st. Justin, you got those letters too, right?
Yep, that's correct.
I don't know if we got an answer back from them.
We did on the primary contractor. I haven't seen the electrical come back yet.
Okay. I have a letter of resignation from Christopher Burns, who was the Disaster Preparedness Committee chairman, do we call him, or?
He was the
Coordinator.
deputy chairman.
Deputy chairman. He just doesn't have time to serve because of health issues and family matters. So I thank him for his service, and I don't think we need to, since he wasn't on a payroll, I don't think we have to accept that resignation. Right.
June, did he have a small stipend?
He did not fill out, who asked me that question? You did, okay, that's what I thought. He did not fill out any paperwork. He was only on it for like a month and then he decided it was more than he had time for at the present.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody noticed, it's not our old bus was shiny and clean. We've got the new bus finally on the road. Wednesday, it'll be 30 years since the first bus, dial-up bus, was put on the road here in the town of Highlands. Colleen asked me to make sure I emphasize that the Dial-A-Bus is not a senior citizen ride. It's a ride for all Highland Falls, Town of Highlands residents. It's limited as to where they can go, and 24-hour notice for a pickup is required.
May I say something on the Dial-A-Bus? Sure. As long as we're talking about the Dial-A-Bus, that means we free up the old Dial-A-Bus. My first thought was to give it to the center. But after speaking with Justin, we can't just give it away. It's against New York State law. But we could, if we're interested in providing it to them, and they are interested in accepting it and taking care of the expenses, the maintenance, the gas, all the expenses, so that they could use it in lieu of a larger bus when they had small groups. They could use it to transport our youth to various activities outside of the village. Such as they took them, or they can take them out to the sheriff's office, they can take them out to anything in the county to familiarize them, and there's like programs for that, but with the bus they would be able to use it. Are we interested in, and I'm sure you can all assume that I am because I brought it up, amending their contract to allow them, we would still retain ownership, but they would be responsible for everything else. Are we interested in allowing the center to use that bus, since they are already our coordinator for adult programs?
Justin, how's that sound to you?
Right, so Councilwoman Gunza and I spoke before about the issue, and it'd be a contract amendment, and it would have to be formalized, because you can't give away assets without obtaining fair market value. So, but certainly contractually with your coordinator, I would imagine that could be negotiated and completed.
And they're going to take on the maintenance of it and provide the driver and the
Yes.
insurance.
They were willing to take it off of our hands completely, but then after talking with Justin, we can't just, we have to put it out for fair market value.
Right, which is the first step, but then
Right.
the maintenance and the insurance I would
Well,
be concerned
if
with.
we, since we already do contract with, correct me if I'm incorrect. Since we already have a contract with them, we can amend it so that they could use it for the programs that they are now delivering anyway. Senior programs, youth programs. The thing
Okay.
is, we would own it, they would take all the financial responsibility of it and use it. And I'm sure that Justin would,
So I don't know that all those conversations have fully
Right.
taken place with the
Okay.
center, right? Because at different points, it was a different concept. But I would imagine if they're seeking usage of it for town programs or coordinated programs, right, we could come to a resolution. But I think we have to talk out some of those points.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think that we
absolutely.
already had come to the conclusion that we wanted to keep the bus for that purpose of having an additional asset to use for seniors in particular. But if we're adding youth, that's a good thing. Usage is good. So, yeah, support that wholeheartedly. And so if now we add the fact that this allegedly, the center is willing to take on all the maintenance and the insurance, and that would be a great story, book ending. So yeah, let's pursue it.
they had stated that because they thought that they would be able to take possession of it completely. But you're right, all the details would have to be finalized, an agreement would have to be written, and everyone would have to sign off. So, but if we agree with the concept, maybe we can move forward with that.
Absolutely.
So you do a little more researching on President Ty?
Yes.
Okay. Elijah? No, you're, June. I mean,
Oh,
you're-
yeah, that's fine.
okay.
I mean,
Okay.
That's fine.
All right, communications I have from the town clerk's office, an application for a license as a food vendor with, I guess, a food truck. He's already paid for the license, but I do have a problem, which I'll discuss. It's $100 for this license. It allows him to sell products from his mobile food service establishment, hot dogs and such. He wants, on the application, he does not have a location, but he told a town clerk that it would be the second pull-off on the mountain on IW. My problem with approving this, that's not, although it's in the town of Highlands, it's not our property. I don't know whether it belongs to the Palisades Park Commission or the state, so I
You
would
mean on
like...
Storm King Mountain?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That would be DOT, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would guess.
I don't know, but I can see where we can permit him to sell into town, but the location, he's got to get permission from that. In other words, I can't give him permission to sell in your backyard. He needs that first.
Indoor
from
in
you.
the town,
Yeah.
right. You can do that.
So anyway, I'm going to table this. I know he wanted to get it as soon as possible, but I'm going to table this and see what happens.
What's the organization?
It's not an organization, it's a private enterprise.
Okay.
They can take a look through his application. All right. In our last payout of check run, we paid out $113,333. The larger items were medical insurance monthly, $27,959. That's for town employees' medical insurance. Ford Motor Credit Company, $11,937. That's police 1988 lease on the Interceptor. McCarthy Carpentry, $10,860 for that roof down the sewer plant. Orange and Rockland, $2,760. Delivery Constellation, what is that, Kelly?
Constellation is the supplier of the electricity. O&R.
Oh, okay, that's the name of the okay, yeah, I asked that question to her and I forgot the answer. Okay, that's one of these delivery companies that work along with Orange and Rockland. $691, let's see, $3,451 for streetlights. Pomona Power Equipment, $9,871 for the Highway Department's mower. That replaces that, was it the 1986 mower that we're still keeping, using it in different places. $22,456 for court justice fees. That goes to the state controller. And the Rockland County Solid Waste, $7,919 for landfill charges. Kelly gave us a budget transfer, which would be $7,600 from Long Pond personnel to Parks and Recreation, and that was to purchase the larger shed that we just so I ask for a motion to approve the budget transfer of $7,600.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried.
And that's to replace the three existing
Yeah,
sheds?
the sheds that were up in the field there.
Right.
Are gone, finally, and our guys are gonna plant some seed, and you wouldn't even know they were there. They moved them down to Figgins, all the way down the deep end.
All the way on the far
They
end.
bought a much larger shed that will take place of 3 of the sheds, and plus
Bigger.
one of the newer sheds went down to Figgins. So, I think
Yep,
a
it'll look
lot of
better.
people, including the mayor, are gonna be happy to see those sheds gone.
Yes.
And liaison reports, we'll start with you, Rich.
I'll move things along and say no report. No report.
Oh, okay. June?
I'm not going to be that quiet.
Okay.
Rich Sullivan, I saw him at the library last Thursday night, and I'm sure he will have very nice things to say. But the library has a display at the moment from Stan Goldblatt. He's a 45-year resident of the town, and he took photographs of hikers that were hiking the Appalachian Trail, actually 166 photos. ages 8 to 66, and there are 20 of those photos on display in the library with little captions underneath telling you about the person, which makes it real. I mean, and they are, not only are the photographs great, but the captions are great. We had an emergency management committee meeting last Wednesday, and we really need a new coordinator. So anyone out there that would like to be the emergency management committee coordinator for the town of Highlands, please call the town hall, leave your name and phone number. And that's it. The chief, I'm sure, can report on the police department. He does very well.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, everyone at home. I have a very brief report, and it is the Town of Highlands Recreation Department for older adults and the Highlanders at the Senior Center, 15 Drew Avenue, Highland Falls, from the months of April through June, and September through November will have the following activities. The first and third Tuesdays of the month will be classic movies. Classic movies will be taking place at 10:30 a.m. And then the second and fourth Thursday will be chair exercises. That will go from 11:15 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. And one last thing, there's a trip to Westchester Broadway Theater, Tuesday, May 14th. Departure is 9:30 a.m. And that is, the show that is playing is 4x4 music of the Beatles, Motown, and more. And any questions, you can contact the center, 845-446-5983. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Richard?
I'm not quite as flamboyant as Ty, but good evening to everybody. The ZBA meets on the third Wednesday of the month. I am the liaison. I went to their last meeting. They approved an area variance on Schneider Avenue. I think it was 69 Schneider Avenue, if I'm not mistaken. They will meet on April 17th, and it's open to the public, third Wednesday of the month. If you want to see what projects are going on in your town, I think there's a significant one that may be going to them. Go to the meeting, and you'll know. Their chairman is Jack Janarone, very decent group of people he has. The building department, Kim is back. She had her baby. Congratulations to her. So they're back at full strength. I see Nicole's is being abated for asbestos before demolition. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. And I read off the report from the building department last month, so I don't have to do that again. When I get March's, I'll read it off. Sewer. We met with the project going on Canterbury Road, and I hope that's moving forward. The March plant outflow was 101,000 gallons per day average, with 3.6 inches of precipitation. I don't have last year's. I normally read them off. I don't have last year's with me, but I know it's more by about 10,000 gallons. As Bob mentioned, Fusco sent out the extension letter for TAM, I believe it was. I think they're good till August, if I'm not mistaken.
And the electrical contractor also, he
So
sent
that
a
one
letter.
also got sent out? Okay. There's a bill here from him I'm gonna review. I won't discuss the amount in public just yet. Kelly gave it to me. I'll look over that. And I haven't been in contact with Dawn from Lincoln Tully about doing the RFP for inspecting the sewer lines. I'm gonna call her later this week and get the ball. I'll send out a common email so that she has the data to go ahead and do that. I'm waiting for Debbie to send out last month's report so I know how much money is left in that line in the budget, and that's what we'll have to work with out of the sewer budget for that. And the only other thing I have to say is there was a letter in the paper from Deborah Copold. She mentioned my name. A few days before her father died, I met him at the Fort Montgomery Post Office, and he was going to run for town supervisor, and he asked me to run as a councilman along with him. I served on the school board with Ned for 10 years. I have the utmost respect for the whole family, and I actually appreciate the letter. And she's going to have somebody, I believe, come and speak at our next meeting. I forget her name, Patty Woods or something like that, about the health effects associated with LED lighting and whatnot. So people, if they want to come here that side, they're welcome to do so.
Gotcha. Yeah, very good. Chief?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm happy to report that all 3 Phase 2 candidates successfully passed the police academy. Not only did they the required hours, they also were certified in TASER, and starting tonight, the first Phase 2 recruits on patrol. They have to give 160 hours before they're certified as police officers. They have to go to a certified field training officer. We have 4 right now. I contacted the police academy about putting another course on, see if we can get some more folks trained, so that will supplement the force for summer vacation, so it looks like that's gonna go. Our refresher recruit is attending as well. He'll be a little longer, he doesn't need as many hours, and then he'll need 80 hours of field training. So I think by summertime, we'll be up to full strength, so 2 certified, 3 Phase 2, and a refresher will supplement the force, so I thank you for that. I did meet with Commissioner Cherry last week. He's the police liaison, deputy commissioner, and we're talking about radios. Our radios are in our vehicles. This is the grant that the county gave all police and fire departments. They have vehicle radios, portable radios, and the upgrade of the towers. So 293 was a subject of our conversation. When all the towers are up, we should have very good coverage there. They're going to wait till full bloom, which is around June, and they're going to test the radios out at the air show first, and then we'll be one of the first departments. Of course, where we sit, he wants to give us a trial run to see how it works out. So hopefully, between tomorrow, calling the radio communications folks, because I had no idea anything was hit by electricity, we'll be getting some better coverage at the end of the county. And the last thing is that our disaster preparedness meeting, we spoke about a reverse 911 for some of the folks in the community. So you could sign up for it, and then in turn, if there was something going on in the county, they would send it back. They're changing vendors, so Commissioner Cherry advised me to let folks here and at home know about the New York alerts. It's on the New York homepage. You could sign up to receive any alerts for individual counties and for a variety of items going on, from traffic control, et cetera. It's good for home phones, it's good for cell phones, and it's good via fax. The only thing I caution you is be careful what you sign up for, or your phone will be going off all day. So if anybody has any questions, they can contact me at the police department, and we can help them out. It's New York alerts. Other than that, I think things are good.
Chief, I just got one comment, and it's an attaboy, as we say in the military. So I went down to visit the station today and happened to run into one of the officers or patrolmen. He didn't recognize me, and I didn't recognize him. But he says he's been here since 2012, I believe. He was in the Marine Corps. He's now in the Army Reserve. He's deployed to Afghanistan. But super officer, doing a fabulous job, and gave me a good tour of the operation. So I just want to pass that on to you. Once again, it just shows that you're doing a great job, and the whole force is an element that makes us proud. So thanks a lot for what you're doing.
And I'll relay that to him as well, sir. Thank you.
I believe that was
Good, go ahead.
Officer Mang.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
I couldn't remember his name before.
Chief, it seems to me like a year ago, we sent somebody from Goosetown up to the Bull Tower. I could swear we did, because we had a problem then, and we wanted to see what it was, and I don't think they found anything wrong. But I'm going to call them up tomorrow just to find out what.
I'm going to contact Rage Control, because apparently there's 2 fences, and then you got to go up the embankment.
Yeah.
We have access to Putnam County, so sometimes the switch will trip there, but we have key access, so we don't need Goosetown. We can drive over there, throw the switch, and the repeater's back up and running. But I'm going to call Rage Control and set something up tomorrow as well.
And then one other thing, and I'll send you an email on it, down at My Dock Park. Our season is in, so there'll be no more parking on the river side of the tracks. And there's no sign right now, but tomorrow morning there will be a sign there. I took it down, I'm going to put it back up.
Okay. And I know patrol on all shifts have encountered folks down there and actually had to move some folks out for certain situations down there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Kelly, do you have anything?
No.
No. Justin, do you have anything?
I think everything's on the agenda.
All right, the only thing I have that's, our Ag and Markets came and inspected our dog pound and found it to be satisfactory. That's the best they can do with their ratings satisfactory. It has everything there. But one thing that's interesting is, and as a town board and holding the purse strings, we should know, since Nancy Beeman left town, we really have no veterinarian in town. And according to Ag and Markets, any seized dog suffering from an illness or serious injury must receive prompt treatment by a licensed veterinarian. So that might mean that if we get a dog in there that's sick, we're going to send them out to a veterinarian place, and it's going to cost bucks, but we have no other choice. Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah, the
Yes, ma'am.
cooperative agreement with the Orange County.
Yeah, well, that's coming up. That's all I
Oh,
have.
you said
My-
that-
That was
oh,
my
I'm sorry.
report.
right.
I don't get to give a report at every meeting. But anyway, I have a resolution to authorize execution of the cooperative agreement between the town of Highlands and the Orange County District Attorney's Office concerning the Orange County Drug Task Force. Whereas the Orange County District Attorney's Office, Orange County Sheriff's Office, and various Orange County municipalities have a cooperative agreement to act collectively as a task force, which is known as the Orange County Drug Task Force. The town board has reviewed the terms and conditions of the agreement and deems it to be in public interest for the town of Highlands to enter into the agreement. Now therefore be resolved that the supervisor be, and he hereby is authorized and directed to execute the agreement, and his execution of such agreement hereby confirmed. Be it further resolved that the supervisor and officers of the town are hereby authorized and empowered to make, execute, and deliver, or cause to be made, executed, delivered, in the name of and on behalf of the town, all certificates, documents, and papers as may be necessary to effectuate and carry out the contents of the foregoing resolutions and the terms and conditions of the agreement. Be it further resolved that this shall take place immediately. I'll ask for a motion to move the resolution.
Motion.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sullivan,
Aye.
Councilmember King,
Aye.
Councilmember Gonza,
Aye.
Councilmember Parry,
Aye.
Supervisor Lucy.
Aye. Okay, I have a letter from our former receiver of taxes. The letter is dated March the 12th. It was my mistake that I didn't bring it up at our last meeting. I am resigning effective immediately as the receiver of taxes of Town of Highlands. For medical reasons, I offered public service as the appointed interim receiver in a critical time of need. It has been a great honor to then be elected by the people of Town of Highlands and serve as their elected receiver of taxes. The letter was received on March the 13th. I'll ask for a motion to accept the resignation.
I'll make a motion, or second.
That's it's Barbara Minetti.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Police and traffic control for construction assistance. Chief, you want to say anything about that?
Yes, sir. I think it's just preliminarily his budget. It's a 2.5-year project, but he's one of 6 bidders. So I wouldn't even have a number to give to him. He might not even get the bid, but I see more and more that we get some requests if we supplement, traffic control and direction in certain areas. So I figured since we received the most recent email, I would kind of play you folks as well. He might not even get the bid.
Right.
And outside of New York State, some of them are required to have police there. In New York State, not every construction site needs police. But I think he was looking to put that into his budget.
Okay. So we'll just put that on hold until he gets the contract or whatever.
I spoke to him via email today, sir.
Oh, you spoke to him? Oh, good.
Do we have an SOP for that, or should we establish an SOP for that, or handle it case by case? Those requests?
No, I think it's probably case by case because
Okay.
we just don't know exactly what we're walking into, whether they need 2 officers, 1 on each end, or the hours, or...
Okay. I'm just curious whether, how we were going to proceed with that.
And I assume that probably we, probably don't have enough personnel to handle with that.
Yes, sir.
Kelly, I did get your email on the EMTs. Do you have a copy of? Yeah. Let me have a moment. The ambulance corps took three EMTs, or is there four? Four EMTs. They will be, Jeff. Glad to see you here. Would you explain to us the duties of these four that you've selected off of the list, the county list, the four EMTs?
Yeah. You want their daily duties?
Not necessarily daily duties, but we put them more or less on rotation, on call.
I put them in the pool.
In the pool. In the
Right.
pool, how does that work?
You're gonna choose which one we're gonna need. We have to fill a couple of shifts.
So we're gonna hire all four of these guys.
That's up to you guys, right? What did Marty tell you?
What did Marty tell me?
Yeah, or action.
Kelly?
I think you spoke to Mark.
Okay. I think she passed it on to you, Jeff. Which, it doesn't matter how many we hire, because they're gonna be in the pool and they'll be used as necessary.
Okay.
All
That
right?
works for us. We have a few slots that need to be filled.
Okay. So what I'm gonna ask the board to do is to hire all four, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. We have a Damian Rigmaiden from Highland Falls. He's been an EMT for 1 year and 4 months. We have a Carry-On Rice from Putnam Valley, 5 years in EMT. Sean Boyle from Cornwall, 7 years in EMT. And Stephen Capone from Pomona, 9 years as an EMT. So all the other information that is required is in Kelly's office on their applications. I'll ask for a motion to hire all four, we'll do it all in one shot, all four, as EMTs under the current salary schedule and with the maximum probation.
Kelly,
Make
are
the
there
motion.
positions in place for four? Okay.
I make the motion that we hire all four in the current salary situation.
Thank you. Do I have a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Jeff, if you would let Marty know, or I'll let you know, that all four of them will have to come to your office, right, Kelly, and fill out the paperwork.
Thank you.
And we can't do anything with them until they do that.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else I got, Jim?
No.
Yeah, there is one more thing.
Yeah, that email you received today?
Yeah. I'm going to call it public comment, but Olga, I'm sure you have something to talk to us about. Come on up.
Well, I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, and I sent an email to the entire town board requesting that you recognize formally by resolution a Citizens Environmental Advisory Council, of which we have, I think, 6 individuals who've agreed to be on the council initially. I think the email and what I explained previously outlines the tasks for the council, but it basically, the name says it all. It would be as an advisory group to the town board, making decisions around, for example, the Clean Energy Communities program, for which we've signed up, but which kind of has stalled because there's so much work involved in pursuing these kinds of things. So I just ask for formal recognition of the council by resolution, so.
Okay, the resolution will have to come next meeting.
Okay.
And I think we briefly talked about it as a town board, and it sounds great.
Oh,
Free help is tremendous.
We're going to look for money too, so.
Well, but you're not going to be authorized any money until you,
No,
until you
but-
show us what you got.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I read the email and was impressed with what you've laid out as a proposal, and want to say thank you as a citizen for coming forward, and the rest of the individuals on the committee. Thank you.
Okay, could you name the members of the committee, because I lost my little sheet?
Oh, well, so Councilmember Richard Sullivan, Lynn Edsel, Cindy Modlin, Ed Nugent, and Chevy Wanamaker.
Pretty good bunch.
Good bunch. Yeah, well, most of us were on the green team that we had started a number of years ago, so we're just continuing that work in a more formal way.
Very good. Now, how did you like our presentations tonight? Because they seem kind of connected with things that you...
Yeah, well, it's good to hear. I think the NIPA was touched on all of the important matters involved, so...
I like the way he presented it, because it was very easy to realize the cost involvement and what we would get out of it.
Right. And touched on all the key points, I think, so that was good. And food for thought on the cell situation, so just something that we need to...
I'm not generally known as like a very green person because I drive junky vehicles and whatnot, but I did spend 4 years on the Tappan Zee Bridge installing about $50 million worth of emissions equipment on all those 38 cranes that were out there. You could breathe the exhaust, so I am a little bit green anyway.
Well, is it Marquez? They have awesome the electric vehicles, so check them out.
Anyone else, public comment?
Thank you.
Yes, Jeff?
We spoke, if you would, if the board would check into, since the New York State has lowered the age for EMTs, we're trying to get a junior member corps together. If you would investigate what the insurance impact would be, or if there's anything that the town wouldn't like us to start getting 16-year-old members, if you would do that.
Okay. Jeff, explain maybe just a little bit more of what you were talking about.
It's a junior membership. Most ambulance corps and fire departments have them. And what they'll be doing is they'll actually be riding with permission from their parents. There's a certain time that they can ride. If they're not doing their homework and stuff like that, they're automatically released back to their parents. They will be knowing the rig, everything that's in the back of the rig, and going on calls. So we want to know how the board feels about.
So here's a question I would have. So going on calls, does that mean they have limitations to what they can do, or they have full rights as a year?
Would have basically full rights. Everything, something's too bad, it would be on the EMTs that are on board with them to say this is something that you should not see. But as I stated, most ambulance corps have junior EMTs.
Jeff, I know in the fire service, the junior firemen, they have responsibilities to a certain point,
That's correct.
and beyond that,
That would
they
be
are
an op-
helpers. So I'm assuming it would be the same with the ambulance corps.
Yes, it would be.
They do not have full
that's the question I was
access to every...
Actually, you can start studying and going to class at 16 years old to be an EMT.
Right.
New York State is currently working on lowering the age to 17 because we're short of EMTs in the state. So they lowered the age. And as I stated, most corps, junior members ride.
Oh, I know both fire departments have the
Yeah.
junior corps, and it's great because they end up being chiefs someday.
That's correct.
All right.
Jeff, if you could, from one of our neighboring ambulance corps,
Cornwall, I can do that.
get their...
Get their bylaws and their SOPs.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're reading my mind. I don't like that.
Do that sometimes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Got anything? No? Yeah.
I had one last thing. And so just because and I thought she was going to be here tonight, the town clerk had asked a question to me in relations to the receiver of taxes. And so what I wanted to know and put on record is that those concerns were addressed and by the entire board, and then leading to decisions that have now allowed for the issues that she raised to be taken care of. But in the meantime, if she's available in the next day or so and has more questions, I'll make sure to address them. But I want those on the record that we did fully talk about that and address it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we did more talking in executive session, and then I brought up the fact that I did receive a letter from the town clerk with her suggestions.
Yes.
So it wasn't just passed over.
Okay.
Justin, is there anything we need to talk about on the, at least the union?
No, I think I've heard enough feedback individually that I'm comfortable with that
That's what I mean.
process.
Okay, so we don't need an executive session or anything.
Not for me.
All right.
Did
and
you,
yes,
did
yeah,
you
yeah.
want to say anything about that, or is that just interdepartment? You know, there was questions flying around about that. I didn't know whether that was sufficient or not.
Yeah, you want to,
Well, you can.
what? The next trip scheduled by the Senior Citizen Advisory Council, that would be a trip that's open to all seniors, is Tuesday, May the 14th, to the Westchester Broadway Theater. It would be $63 and $5 transportation, total of $68 payable to the town of Highlands. A tip for the driver will be collected on the bus. All right?
It's really the same thing. The second page is the same thing.
Same
There
thing.
there were some questions about the cost of the bus and how the money was allocated. So that's it. The center does not collect the funds. It comes directly to the town of Highlands, and the comptroller's office who manages it. And part of the price, it goes into a fund to build up, to have more trips and hire more buses. So that was the answer to the question, if anybody out there is interested.
There's no fundraising on these trips. Any extra money that comes up gets put back into the account. All right, Kelly?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for